Hello everyone, I hope you're all keeping well, healthy and happy. Unfortunately, this video isn't going to make you very happy. And the reason for that is because earlier this week I had the misfortune of watching footage of ISIS militants decapitating a young child. And I was also shown footage of these Islamic State militants raping, butchering, murdering Yazidi and Kurdish women. And it cuts deeply into your soul to see things like that. You can't erase that from the mind. And you probably won't understand the reasons why I'm making this video unless you've actually seen that sort of footage. So why am I making this video? Well, because our intelligence services and our military is vastly underfunded, and by our services I'm talking about both the United States and the UK and many European agencies and many European militaries. They're vastly underfunded. They are ill-equipped to understand the connection between radical Islamist ideologies and the actual terrorist groups which exist. You see, they converge. The extremist groups that radicalize people are a recruitment tool. And of course, they are very proficient at using social media, so people can be self-recruited into, self-initiated almost into these very dangerous groups, where they become a terrorist threat to the host nation. And of course, our focus very recently has been on the migrant crisis, because we've had a flood of hundreds of thousands of people into the EU, certainly the European Union. And of course, there are serious worries and concerns in Canada and the United States and so forth as well. And I can completely understand why, because that's an immediate threat. But very few people are actually asking why that has happened, why this migrant crisis has occurred. And the reason for that is because, well, it's uncomfortable to know the truth. The fact of the matter is that the Middle East has been destabilized on purpose by elements within the deep state. Now, I've already discussed at great length the root of jihadist extremist ideology in the third video that I put up, which was on Islamic terrorism. So the link between these things has been explained to people by many prominent experts. However, because of the radical left agendas of the past administrations, what has taken place is that no one is willing to say the name of the enemy, so to speak, right? Very few people are willing to do that. And this, of course, has resulted in advisors like Robert Spencer and his work, which is seminal in understanding what is going on with regards to the threat of terrorism, Islamic terrorism. The work of these people has been removed from the literature at Langley in Virginia, the CIA headquarters. And what that has done is that it has made any attempts or efforts at addressing the problem impotent, really. This is what's happened. And there's a similar kind of thing has happened pretty much everywhere else, depending on the extent of appeasement, you see, because we've had too many people in power that have acted as apologists for radical Islamists, right? They've even silenced moderate Muslims who are attempting to speak about the subject, who are attempting to inject some sort of logic and rationality into the matter itself. They haven't allowed that. They have been branded as people who are guilty of hate speech, you see. And this is part of the big problem, right? So, why was the Middle East destabilized, and what is going on? Well, part of this, again, I discussed in a previous video on the deep state. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, you can. To understand exactly what the deep state actually is. It's a mixture, to give a brief overview, it's a mixture of the intelligence services, certain segments within those, the military-industrial complex, the banking sectors, and other various government institutions, and the government itself, to some degree, branches of government. Now you see, as I say, because these clandestine agencies have not been properly informed of things, they don't know the first thing about what they're fighting out there. They don't know the military capabilities of ISIS, which is why they have been losing so badly and drastically, along with some other horrendous policy decisions. So in this video, what I'm going to do is to give an outline, if you like, of ISIS military capabilities. It's an inventory, if you like. This is what it's going to be. It's an inventory of exactly what they have and what they can do with it. And I'm also going to present some solutions to counteract the problem as well. Because here's the thing, I am tired. I am literally tired of watching people die in wars that were unnecessary. I am tired of seeing American soldiers come back in coffins. I am tired of seeing British soldiers come back in coffins. I'm tired of seeing children, women, men killed with extreme brutality visited on them. I am tired of seeing the young children in these countries with their arms and legs blown off by these militants. I'm tired of it. But I'm a private citizen. Now I'm a private citizen. What can I do about it? You see, this became the question for me after watching a lot of the footage, as I mentioned. What can I do about it? Well, this is exactly what I'm going to be addressing here. By outlining this information, I am hopeful that people will take notice who are within these within the intelligence community. I'm hoping people will pay attention to this, because I don't know if they understand much of this at all. Okay. You see, they pay attention oftentimes, and I know this for a fact, they pay attention to some of the videos that I've put out there. And so, it's my hope that by making them more informed, they'll be able to spread this information to others out there as well. So here's the thing. ISIS presently has in their possession 30 T-55 tanks. The tanks were designed by the Soviet Union and were produced through the 80s in mass numbers. These tanks feature heavy armour, along with a 100mm rifled gun and a secondary 7.62mm machine gun. They also have 15 T-62 tanks. The T-62 was the main Soviet battle tank that was designed to replace the T-55. This tank was extensively used by the Iraqis during the Iran-Iraq War. The T-62 is heavily armoured, armed with 115mm tank guns, along with 2 secondary machine guns. The T-72 Euro tank is also something that they have in their possession. There are rough estimates with regards to this. Most experts think that they have between 5 and 10 T-72 tanks. The T-72 is the second generation Soviet battle tank that first was created in 1971, but they are still rolling off the assembly line. The Russians are still manufacturing these. The T-72 is heavily armoured and features a 125mm main gun. It's also armed with a secondary machine gun and an anti-aircraft gun. The jihadists have also captured an estimated 6 of the BRDM-2 armoured vehicles, which is an amphibious armoured patrol car that was created again by the Soviet Union. The vehicle has a 14.5mm heavy machine gun as its main armament, along with 7.62 secondary general-purpose machine guns. They also have a number of MTLB armoured vehicles. The MTLB is a Soviet amphibious auxiliary armoured vehicle which was used by the Iraqi army. And the Iraqi army, of course, got 500 of these MTLBs. ISIS, thankfully, don't have that many. But these vehicles can carry up to 13 people. They have a main armament of a 7.62mm machine gun. Now, I know that a lot of the information that I'm presenting here is dry, okay? This is going to bore you to tears. Okay, but again, this is not primarily for my viewers that I'm putting this out there. I'm sorry to say, as much as I'd love for you all to get something out of this video, this is primarily to present this information to certain persons who can then hopefully share that. The BMP-1 infantry fighting vehicle. ISIS also have 20 of these in their arsenal. The BMP-1 is a Soviet amphibious tracked infantry fighting vehicle. It was introduced into service again by the Soviet Union. The vehicle is fitted with a 7.62mm machine gun and a 73mm semi-automatic gun. It can fit 8 passengers. They also have 3 2S1 Gvozdikas, which are self-propelled artillery. They were first introduced in the 1970s but are still manufactured today. They're highly maneuverable, self-propelled, amphibious, and is probably the first piece of artillery that ISIS can bring to any front, any battlefront, easily. This self-propelled artillery fires 122mm shells at semi-automatic pace. It has a conventional range of 9.5 miles. ISIS also acquired a fleet of US-built Humvees that were stored in Mosul. These by the way, these might have been destroyed in the recent attack that was carried out by American forces. So whether these are still operational or not, we don't know. The vehicles allow for quick and efficient movement across rough terrain, as anyone who's owned a Humvee knows. The Humvee's heavy armour also protects anyone inside it from small arms fire, as well as collateral damage from indirect explosions. However, these vehicles offer little protection against landmines or buried IEDs. In terms of small arms, ISIS presently, insofar as is known, primarily use an AK-47. So the militants are all pretty much equipped standard with these. However, they have been caught using American weaponry as well on occasion. AK-47s are lightweight and very effective and remarkably easy to obtain, as most people know. They also have 82mm B-10 recoilless rifles. This is an old Soviet Union weapon, which is considered obsolete, but was heavily used in Iraq and Syria by their militaries. The recoilless rifle fires modified artillery shells that function well against tanks and other varieties of armoured vehicles. So using these, they've been able to, on occasion, stop armoured vehicles from advancing. They also have 105mm M40 recoilless rifles. Now, how many of these they have has been speculated by many people. Some have estimated they've only got one of these. Some have estimated more. This is a light anti-tank weapon, which was made by the United States. It entered service in the mid-50s, but again, it is now considered obsolete. However, Iraq and Syria never purchased these weapons, but the weapons did somehow end up in Syria, and we'll discuss exactly how that happened. They also have in their possession an M71 OSA rocket launcher, which fires 90mm shells and is highly effective against tanks and fortified positions. According to investigative journalist Elliot Higgins, he believes that these weapons originated in Croatia before they were smuggled to Syrian rebels by Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabians, incidentally, are very heavily involved in arms smuggling to ISIS. ISIS has used these rockets to devastating effect against the Iraqi security services and their armoured vehicles. They also have RBG-6 grenade launchers. Saudi Arabia again smuggled Croatian RBG-6 launchers into Syria, and the launchers magically found their way into the hands of ISIS. RPG-7s are also used by ISIS. These were originally used by the Iraqi security services, and interestingly they are used by the opposition forces, the Kurdish Peshmerga. Now the thing is that RPG-7s are very highly portable, so this makes them easy to carry around manually. They're unguided shoulder launch anti-tank weapons. They're very, very durable, very easy to use, and have a reach of up to 920 meters. They also have multiple rocket launchers. They've got the UB-16, which is a 57mm system. They've got the 107mm Type 63, the 122mm BM-21, and all of these systems can fire multiple rockets a second at a range of approximately 13 miles. So they are very, very well equipped, let's put it that way. Further to that, they've got a M198 howitzer, which can fire rounds up to 14 miles. They've got a Type 59-1 field gun, which is a Chinese copy of the Soviet M46 The M46, which was the original upon which the Type 59-1 was built around, designed, was originally used by the Soviets in 1954. But the Chinese took that and they copied it, and they still use it to this day. And of course, another thing to note is that the Chinese were also heavily involved in arms and weapons smuggling that allowed ISIS to acquire these weapons. They've also got in their possession the Zu-23-2, which is a Soviet anti-aircraft autocannon, which was produced in the 1960s originally, but again is still in production today. The autocannon fires 23mm rounds at a rate of 400 rounds per minute. The Zu-232 can fire effectively at up to 2 miles and is designed to strike at low-flying targets as well as armoured vehicles. The weapon has been used very heavily already in the Syrian civil war. It's also in the arsenal of the Iraqi army. They've also captured, ISIS that is, have also captured small numbers of 14.5 KPVs, 14.5 ZPU-2s, 23mm Zu-23s, 37mm Type 65s, 57mm AZP-S60 anti-aircraft guns from the Syrian and Iraqi militias. They also have the 23mm ZSU-23-4 self-propelled anti-aircraft gun. They've got at least 2 of these, and it's a light armoured anti-aircraft system. This weapon is radar-guided and self-propelled, allowing for it to be easily transported between any location. They've also got probably one of their most effective weapons, which was used during the Afghan-Soviet War, which we'll talk more about after we've gone through this. The FIM-92 Stinger manpads. The FIM-92 Stinger is a shoulder-fired infrared homing surface-to-air missile, which was originally designed by the United States and entered service in 1981. These are extremely dangerous and can effectively take down virtually any helicopter or aircraft. They've also got SA-16 manpads, which were again created by the Soviet Union. So they've got Soviet and American weapons which came out of Saudi Arabia. They can hit aircraft up to 16,000 feet and could endanger helicopters and flying fighter jets that are used in the air campaign against ISIS. So with the current strikes that are going on, that are taking place, that are being waged by the Russians as well as the American forces, these could be used against them. ISIS also have in their possession 9K32 Strela 2 manpads. The Strela 2 is the first generation of Soviet shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile system. We don't know how many of these they have, but they do have them and they have been caught using them. The HJ-8 anti-tank missile, which is made by China, has a range of up to 6,000 meters and is partially based on the US BGM-71 TOW missile. HJ-8s are highly effective against armour, bunkers and fortification. Now, the Free Syrian Army has been using these missiles to some success in their fight against ISIS. ISIS have also acquired 9 M14M Malyutka M1s, 9 M111M Faktroyas, 9 M113 Concours, 9K1153 Metis Ms, 9 M133 Cornets, and IRAD anti-tank missiles for its inventory. They also have DSHK 1938 machine guns. They were mostly used during the Second World War. They don't use them that often, but they do have them. They can fire up to 600 rounds a minute and can be mounted on cars for easy use and maneuverability. Now, that was pretty heavy going, because going through all of that, that's a fairly extensive list. And if you've sat through that, my goodness, you must have the constitution of a buffalo. So well done. So where did all these weapons come from? Well, during the Afghan-Soviet conflict, damn near every side was equipping jihadis who were on their side, as well as their own armies. When the Soviets left in the late 80s, they left behind a lot of equipment, which the militants at the time took. And the militants at that time were Al-Qaeda, which later became ISIL or ISIS. If you want to learn more about this, please go to my third video on this subject. However, it wasn't just them. The Chinese were also supplying weapons through Saudi Arabia to the Afghan militias. And Saudi Arabia kept a large stockpile of these weapons in hidden bunkers across their country. And interestingly, we all know the link between the jihadist elements and the forces that were around then called the Mujahideen. The Mujahids were equipped also by the Central Intelligence Agency during Operation Cyclone, which was a CIA program to arm and finance jihadi warriors from 1979 to 1989. So we can see clearly that all of the intervention over the last decades has had devastating consequences for us in the present day. Now, Operation Cyclone relied very heavily on the Pakistani intelligence services, called the Inter-Services Intelligence, ISI, and that's their acronym. And this program was presided over in Pakistan by President Mohammad Zia al-Haq, who acted as an intermediary for funds, distribution, passing of weapons, military training, and financial support to the Afghan resistance groups. There was also funding from similar programs from British MI6, Saudi Arabia, and the People's Republic of China, as we've mentioned. And so what essentially ended up happening was that what later in the present day has become ISIS was equipped by all of these groups who were fighting proxy wars. Now, why have we been losing up to this point? We've been losing up to this point because ISIS are very well trained in guerrilla warfare and asymmetric warfare. Conventional US and UK forces are not equipped that way, nor are the Canadians or the Australians or anyone else who's been involved through NATO or otherwise. We don't train and equip our military in that same way, apart from our commandos and perhaps the certain groups inside the military, such as, for example, with the Americans, the Navy SEALs, or the Green Berets and so forth. With ourselves, we have been a little bit lax in training more troops in these unconventional battle scenarios. Now, the reason I'm pointing that out is because we can't fight this war and win using conventional means. Can't be done. Okay, I'm going to state this outright. And the population within these countries no longer has the stomach, really, to watch their soldiers, their sons, go out to fight these wars and potentially come back dead. Okay? And of course, with airstrikes, there's a problem with airstrikes because, as I've just explained, ISIS are very well equipped with anti-aircraft weapons. So, although there have been a lot of advances in aircraft technology since those times, they can still be taken out. And the Russians have seen this happen. It's just not been reported very widely. Like most of this hasn't been reported very widely. So what's the best way to defeat ISIS? This becomes the question. Well, there are militant groups who are trained in guerrilla warfare, in unconventional warfare tactics, such as the Kurdistani Peshmerga. But here's the reason why they're not getting very far. See, this is the height of stupidity. We haven't really. You'll see why. They're equipped with only 30 missile launchers. Okay, and 500 missiles. And it was the Germans that equipped them, the Bundeswehr. And they equipped them with Milan II missiles, which were replaced by later models. But they have been used successfully by the Kurds to stop ISIL vehicles that were using vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices. The latest model of the Milan is the Milan ER, which has an extended range of 3,000 meters and has improved penetration. It's guided by wire by an operator, and this missile can virtually avoid almost any countermeasure. However, it costs about $8,000, which is probably why we haven't given any to the Kurds. So, this is an act of stupidity. We need to be arming them better, really, if they're going to fight this fight, instead of us. We should also probably be arming them with Raytheon BGM-71 TOWs, tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided American anti-tank missiles, with M151 and M220 launchers. Okay, that's what we need to give them if we're going to make any headway with ISIS or ISIL. So it has an extremely effective range. The operational range of that particular system is 4,200 meters. It has a speed of about 270 to 320 meters a second. The guidance system, as I say, is optically tracked and wire guided. So, put simply, this is what needs to happen. Because, again, as I say, we're not going to make any headway because funding has been reduced in our own militaries. If we use conventional forces, this is part of the reason why we've been losing so badly in Iraq and in Syria and in Libya, is because conventional forces can't fight this war. And the war has to be fought because if you take a look at what's happened with the migrant crisis, this is now posing a direct threat and a danger to the Western world. Okay? And you're creating more jihadis in the process. That's the other problem. Finally, I'll end on this. Once the war is won, if it is won, then what you have to do is to rebuild the infrastructure in all these countries, or allow the countries that are involved in that to do that. So, for example, if the Russians want to take control of Syria, of this operations against ISIS there, which they're pretty insistent on, you have to let them do that. You have to let them rebuild their infrastructure. Sure, that gives them a foothold in the Middle East, which poses problems because they also support the Iranians and the Yemenis and pretty much everyone else out there that would love to see Israel wiped off the map, as well as the United States. But it seems slightly better than the alternative, which is to remain in a continual, perpetual state of warfare. See, it's all about pragmatism. Our people have not been very pragmatic through this. It's become ideological. You can't fight an ideological battle with your own ideologies. We saw what happened with that in Afghanistan. We've seen what happened with that in Vietnam. Again, I can't explain enough how much we need to actually start thinking slightly differently with regards to fighting the threat of terrorism. So this is how you do it. These groups, if you want to combat them, you've got to do it the right way. And you need to strategize properly. This is the other failing that we've had, is that we haven't planned things out properly strategically. And so there's been a constant loss of ground. ISIS presently, as far as their financial assets are concerned, as I understand it, have just under $1 billion at their disposal. That took a hit in 2016 when they lost some ground. And it'll probably take another hit with this most recent incursion into Mosul by US forces. However, I think they will probably recoup that through other means. So this is what you have to watch for. And also, they are not reliant upon financial means to grow. Okay, they're how can I put this? Their fervent religious ideology gives them the upper hand. People will readily die for their radical beliefs. So I'll finish there because this has been an extraordinarily lengthy and dry video, you know. But I truly felt I had to make this because of the reasons I've mentioned. The brutality that's being visited upon not only the people in the Middle East, but also we're seeing the threats that are very real growing in the Western countries. So I guess people who see this hopefully will do what they need to do with that information and factor that into any further decisions that they make. But it seems to me that that's the best option, is to engage in unconventional warfare rather than relying too heavily upon airstrikes and so forth, because that'll defeat the people that are presently members of ISIS. But because they have such a ready following, people will join left, right and centre and fill up that vacuum again. That's the thing. See, the extremists will, if ISIS is obliterated, something else will take its place if you're not careful. And so you have to fight the battle on many fronts, as it were. One of those is informational, one of those is military, one of those is intelligence, one of those is also rebuilding infrastructure. which wasn't properly done in Iraq, and then we saw Iraq fall. It wasn't properly done in Afghanistan, and we saw Afghanistan fall into the hands of ISIS, and it wasn't done properly in Libya either. And of course, Libya now belongs to ISIS as well. So these things need to be taken into account. And we're living in very dangerous times. We are living in truly dangerous times, and this is why we all have to be as well informed as possible about the things that are going on in the world today, and the intricacies of it all, and the nuances involved in pretty much everything. Anyway, I'll leave it there because I've probably bored you all to tears, those of you that have taken the time to watch this, and I don't want to bore you further, except to say that we need to remain vigilant, and I hope to talk to you again in perhaps a more cheery video, let's say. Okay? But until next time, take good care of yourselves, and God bless you.